Evening. My name is Scott Kisner. I'm the superintendent of schools. I want to first thank you very much for coming out tonight. This is our third town hall presentation on the redistricting. It's good to see some people here. I think we've have some people have been to all three, which does create a little anxiety because got to double check what I said in the first and second one so we're consistent. So before I introduce some people, I just want to let you know that I see some people writing on cards. Please limit one question per card because we're trying to honor as many people as possible so we get to as many questions as we're able during the next 90 minutes. Also, a question that was asked during the first meeting, and I want to just address that now. There will be times, I'm going to introduce Sheree Johnson in a second, but there will be times where she will be shuffling the cards. It's not a card trick. What she's doing is if the question has already been asked, she's not going to ask the question again, or if it's more of a comment than a question, we're trying to get to questions. Now, all emails, and hopefully you're aware of this, all emails that you're sending to the school board or myself, first of all school board members are getting it, and they are also being forwarded to the consultants that you'll meet tonight. Also, all questions that the community is asking, those that we've had a chance to read tonight and those that we have not had a chance, are posted on our website. And today, we had 250 questions from the first town hall. So tonight, this afternoon, we posted the first meeting we had about a week ago. And in a couple days, we will be posting the one we had the other night, and then it'll take us maybe a week to post these questions. Also, a lot of the documents that we will refer to or see tonight, they are also on our website under the section called Redistricting. At any time, if you want something, if you're not clear about something, then please just ask the question and we will try our best to accommodate in a very timely manner. So I just wanted to recognize all 7 school board members are here: Ms. Tricia Healy, Pamela Young, Holly Hazard, Jamie Decatur, Sarah Chase, Irene Egan, and Mr. McCosker. I forgot, Dwayne McCosker, sorry, I forgot his name for a second. And I do want to recognize, I believe, 2 of our principals are here. If others are here, I apologize. I want to recognize the principals from Hampton Oaks Elementary School, Mr. Alan Hicks and Ms. Nicolax. So thank you guys for being here tonight. Okay. And Greg just came, and thank you from, what? I know, I'm checking myself. Moncure Elementary School. Okay. All right. We are ready to have a good time. All right. So I'm going to introduce now Ms. Sheree Johnson, who will walk us through the process.
Thank you, Dr. Kisner. Okay, good evening. My name is Sheree Johnson. I'm the Director of the Office of Strategic Communication and Community Engagement. Many of you may have received the note cards at the front door. You can place your questions on those note cards after a presentation from our consultants with ArcBridge. I will serve as the moderator and read your questions. The consultants will answer those questions, and you can also continue to fill out the cards with more questions, and a member of the communication team will pick up your questions and bring them up here to me. We will wrap up the event at about 8:20 p.m. and try to answer every question. If we do not answer this evening, we will post all of the questions and answers on the SCPS website on the redistricting page. Please note that if a question has been answered, I will move to the next card. This can be a frustrating time for some, but please remember to be respectful. Do not shout out questions. I will only respond to the note cards. At this time, I would like to introduce tonight's panel members. First, Superintendent Dr. Scott Kisner, Ms. Priti Mathur with ArcBridge Consulting, Assistant Superintendent for Operation, Mr. Scott Horan, Matt Towson, Supervisor of Planning and GIS, Mr. Barry Sutta, Executive Director of Fleet Services and Transportation Services. And last but certainly not least, Ms. Wendy Martin Johnson, our Executive Director of Student Services. It is also important to note that you can also attend school board meetings on February 12th and 26th and voice your concern during the public comment section. At this time, I would like to bring up our consultant with ArcBridge for the presentation.
Good evening. My name is Preeti Mathur, and I will be doing the presentation today. I'm from ArcBridge Consulting, and we are the selected consultants here. Today is the third redistricting meeting, town hall meeting, and we will be presenting two plans that we are calling Plan A and Plan B. If you look back at the walls, we have posted large-scale maps for Plan A and Plan B. These plans are developed using the SCPS redistricting criteria. The plans have been developed by ArcBridge Consulting, but we have consulted with SCPS staff, subject matter experts. And we have also presented these plans to the SCPS School Board on January 8th. The subject matter experts that reviewed our plans are from SCPS Transportation Office, SCPS Planning and GIS, SCPS Student Services, Stafford County Planning, and Stafford County GIS. The redistricting criteria that was used to develop these two plans is listed here. Our topmost goal was to balance enrollment across 17 existing elementary schools, targeting at 85.6% capacity utilization at the fourth year. Proximity to schools, connectivity, contiguity, keeping the neighborhoods together as much as possible. And we were also told to use enrollment projection data that was provided by SCPS. Our building blocks for these attendance areas were the planning units, which were provided by SCPS Planning. To show you the enrollment projection, we are targeting the fourth year at 85.6%. Now, this enrollment projection data set was provided to us by SCPS. On this slide, I'm showing you the planning units, which I said are our building blocks. And there are 411 planning units. And in this slide, we have color-coded the number of students. So the lighter the color, the fewer the students. The darker the color, the more students. So one planning unit could have from 0 to 10 students and up to 185 students. We were also given data about your current enrollment, and the data stamp was September 30th, 2018. We looked at the data and we found that some of your schools, Winding Creek, Whitewater, Rocky Run, Brent, Stafford, these were high capacity utilization schools. And then there are two schools which were at 65% or 67% capacity. And these schools were Garrisonville and Rock Hill. Other than finding out the schools which were overcrowded and the schools which were low capacity utilization, we also identified that there were islands or there were disconnected attendance areas. Two of them you're seeing here. Oops, sorry. They're here. Hampton Oaks has 3 disconnected areas, and we have Park Ridge, which has 1 disconnected area. The other schools that have disconnected areas are Falmouth. It has 2 disconnected areas here. And there is Brent. There is a small planning unit which is assigned to Brent. So having looked at the redistricting criteria, looked at the schools which were overcrowded or which could be over capacity in the coming year, we developed 2 plans. We call them Plan A and Plan B. And here we have an overall map of Plan A. And I can show you some of the changes here in Stafford. We have changes all over, and about 3,195 students are affected. And this data is based on the 2019-2020 enrollment projection. And if you notice that we took care of the islands or the disconnected areas, we also made such that the enrollment was balanced across all the schools. Here are the numbers for Plan A, and I present the 7-year view here. And I do want to bring your attention to 2022-23 numbers, because these numbers were used, and we have tried to stay as much as possible to the 85.6% target. So now let me present Plan B to you. This is Plan B. And we have large-scale maps at the back of the room, so if you get a chance, you can take a look at that. We also have provided them to SCPS, and they are also on the website. In this plan, 3,800 students are affected. Here is a 7-year view. And once again, we are looking at 2022-23. That was the number that we used, and 85.6% capacity utilization was our goal. And now what I'll do is I will just show you a couple of maps just to show you what the symbology means. And all the slides are on the website, but here we have Rock Hill, and in Rock Hill, the program capacity is 878. Currently, if nothing was to be done, then it would remain at 68.36% utilization up to by the year 2024. And with Plan A and Plan B, we have reassigned the areas. And if you notice that we are working with as close to the 85.6% goal that we have. So on these maps, I'll show you, and here the schools that were affected were Brent and Garrisonville. So in every slide, you'll see the schools affected. Plan A and Plan B, the red outline that you see is your current existing boundary. And the color shows you the proposed areas that would be in the Rock Hill attendance area. I'll show you just 1 or 2 more slides, and with that, I will hand it over to Sheree, who's going to read out your questions. So here on this slide, we have a slide for Plan A and Plan B. We have the change number. We have change 1 and 2, and we have also listed the neighborhoods that we were getting from Brent and we were giving to Garrisonville. So each slide has the same kind of information, the changes. We have the changes, the neighborhoods listed, and the changes are shown by an arrow so that you can see that. So with this, I think I'm going to hand it over to Sheree, who's going to read your questions.
Thank you so much. All right, yes. At this time, we'll move to the question and answer session of the program. Our first question: why would each school be at the same capacity? Would how the school is performing or the special needs of the student body change the capacity or class size goal?
Matt Townsend, Supervisor of Planning and GIS. The capacity is derived from the number of classrooms, and program capacity looks at the programs and resource space requirements that exist at every school. So every school may not be the same size, they may not have the same programs in them. That's why every school doesn't carry the same capacity. Additionally, class size constraints for class size reduced schools are implemented through the program capacity as well.
What is the rationale behind moving the low incidence programs?
Wendy Johnson, Student Services. When we looked at the redistricting for all 17 elementary schools, a part of Student Services includes inclusive practices. So low incidence programs were also considered. Part of the goal for the 17 elementary were to make sure students were near their neighborhood school. The same thought process goes into students with disabilities being educated in their neighborhood school when possible. Obviously we have fewer programs, so trying to spread those out to schools closest to their neighborhood was the goal that we had in mind. Limiting the number of programs in certain schools, and also when possible doubling up on programs so we could split a K-2 program and a 3-5 program due to curriculum needs and teacher supports.
Shouldn't the walkability of an area or school be considered as a factor? Why split those in Park Ridge that can walk?
This question was asked in the first town hall meeting about walking zones. So for the community, there are approved walking zones throughout all of our schools. The transportation folks looked at that and determined that none of the approved walking zones were impacted by either Plan A or Plan B. Now that doesn't mean there aren't students that walk to school that these plans may affect, but they are not in approved walking zones.
Will the redistricting affect special needs students at Falmouth Elementary School?
Yes, the redistricting, whatever the outcome is for Plan A or Plan B or whatever is decided by the board, will impact students at Falmouth, and it will likely impact students at all 17 elementary schools.
Will the school board take the time to seriously review and consider Plan A 2.0 that was presented yesterday? It seems to solve many of the issues and problems of Plan A and Plan B.
School board looking at all of the information that we
Is it on?
So just tell me if the school board should look at all information.
The school board members are looking at all information that's submitted. Why have the numbers of students per APU been released to the public? I don't know if that's supposed to be why have they not, but it says why have the numbers.
Well,
It says why have the numbers of students per APU been released to the public?
why have they?
It doesn't say have not, maybe it's an error. Sandy? Okay, you mean why have not, okay.
Okay, no reason in particular. In the slides, the consultants have the number of current 2018 K-5 students listed by planning unit, but that's something that staff hasn't been directed to produce.
Would the nice young man please explain what parameters the GIS system used to assign school zones? Mostly shared borders, random chance, most community connection, etc.
I didn't propose any school changes, so I think the consultants are actually the best people to speak to their proposed plans.
We use the redistricting criteria, and the most important criteria for us was to balance enrollment across all 17 schools, and that is what we used, and we used the planning units as the building block. And we also use the enrollment projection data targeting fourth year, 85.6%. Does that answer your question?
Who proposed the 2019-20 program placement, Arkbridge or school board? Who proposed the 2019-2020 program placement, Arkbridge or school board?
If this is in relation to low incidence programs, it was from the Department of Student Services, based on what I indicated before, trying to get students closer to their neighborhood schools, putting a limit on the number of special education programs in a school, and trying to double programs where that's an option.
It's been reported the board is discussing other hybrid options from last night's meeting. Please summarize the new options or ideas discussed. Will there be additional town halls scheduled to voice our thoughts on any new ideas?
So last night was a regular school board meeting, and the portion of the school board meeting where they take public comment, a citizen did submit a plan for the board to look at. If the board, I'm going to make a statement without really consulting with the board, but I'm sure this is what they would do. If the board chooses another plan, not A or B, looks at another plan, I'm sure they will provide an opportunity for the public to give feedback and input on that plan. I would also tell you while I'm thinking about it, next Tuesday night, it's open to the public. Two things. At the school board office, I'm presenting the school budget, so that's something you might be interested in. But probably what you're more interested in, right afterwards, the school board's going to have a discussion, a session, work session, special session, talking about the redistricting. So if you want to, and that will be televised also if you're unable to attend. But just so you know, the 29th, from 7 o'clock it starts, and the redistricting part will probably start around 8 o'clock.
Okay. Were the boundary lines manipulated to maintain or establish Title I schools?
Title I schools, we did not do anything with that. We just worked with the data, so we were not made aware of which schools were Title I or not.
Adjusting part of Austin Ridge to move from Anthony Burns Elementary School to Hampton Oaks Elementary School. That moves such few students. Why not look at feeder middle schools?
This is an elementary school redistricting, and we did look at the planning units, the data that was provided. We also looked at the middle school boundaries, but we did not analyze middle school boundaries.
This person says, the statistics for the Arkbridge were incorrect. Do you plan on correcting the plans with the current statistics?
I'm not sure which statistics you're talking about, but all the data that was used in the analysis is all correct. It's been verified. And if you're talking about any labeling error on the slide, that was not a part of the analysis. So all the data that you're seeing is all good, all correct.
He said Anthony Burns says free and reduced lunch is 37%. He says in actuality it's 46% currently. The school capacity numbers shown on all of the slides are program capacity, which changes every year. How were the program capacities for year 4 calculated?
The program capacities. Okay. The program capacities listed on the presentation were derived from this year's class sizes, proposed changes in the special education or low incidence programs, and the removal of the preschool classes from all of the elementary schools. That's the data that we had to go on, and we are planning for future special education ideal placement by adjusting the program capacity to allocate the space within the schools so they have them going forward.
I want to just maybe address the comment on the question prior to this. I'm not exactly sure what Anthony Burns' free and reduced lunch number is, but for the purposes of class size reduction, I want to clarify that the federal and state language is not free and reduced lunch. It's just free lunch. So depending on what data you're looking at, there's a high probability what you might be looking at is the free and reduced numbers. That does not drive the class size reduction. It's only the free for that school. So I'm just suggesting that might be where there might be a discrepancy in the numbers.
Currently, the county has a busing problem. The two-load system causes children to spend an excessive amount of time waiting for buses before and after school. Will the redistricting alleviate this bus problem? If not, what will be done to fix the bus problem? More drivers, more buses, other solutions?
Barry Sudduth, and the two-load issue is something that I'm very concerned about, and I hope, and in looking at the way the maps are drawn, that we will be able to do away with more of the two-load issues at the elementary schools.
About a year or two ago, roughly 200 students from outside of the Park Ridge subdivision were transferred into Park Ridge Elementary. How much does a move of that size impact the current need to redistrict students at Park Ridge Elementary School? And how will those newly transferred students be factored into the greater redistricting effort? Okay. About a year or two ago, roughly 200 students from outside the Park Ridge subdivision were transferred into Park Ridge Elementary. How much does a move of that size impact the current need to redistrict students at Park Ridge Elementary? And how will those newly transferred students be factored into the greater redistricting effort?
I cannot say for what was done 2 years ago, but I do know that Park Ridge has an island, and we did try to fix that. And anytime if we are moving students up to 200, it is going to make an impact, and it does affect the overall balance.
If pieces of the map start getting moved by tweaking here and there, how much does this alter the plan as a whole? Will it have a sizable impact or none at all?
There are 17 elementary schools, and I have seen questions from you all saying that if one school has an overcrowding problem, why don't you just fix that and leave the rest alone? But this is not what happens in the real world. Everything is connected. We move one area, the other one has to get effect. So it's like a ripple effect that happens throughout, especially in the areas, in the neighboring areas. So yes, any changes going to any tweaking, we'll have to go back and revisit.
How many neighborhoods are divided today?
In Plan A, we have 11 neighborhoods that have been split. Oh, right now. Okay, hang on. Can you ask the next question?
Oh, yep, okay. What constitutes a neighborhood? She's looking for the information, so we're going to the next question. She'll come back to it.
Well, that's a great question. Many people define a neighborhood if your name, Hampton Oaks, and the HOAs that are associated with that, streets that break different neighborhoods up. So that's a good question. I mean, Aquia Harbor, Aquia Hills, those are neighborhoods that were developed by a developer. It's a site plan with different phases. So that's probably the beginning, how that neighborhood was filed and developed, and it carries that name.
Is the ratio from neighborhood to APU 1-to-1?
No. There are neighborhoods and planning units are two different geographic entities, and sometimes a neighborhood could be totally within a planning unit, and sometimes not.
Who determined neighborhood boundaries?
The neighborhood boundaries were provided to us by SCPS, and actually I think they're from Stafford County GIS, Stafford County Planning.
Why would you move Falmouth Elementary students to only replace them? Okay, why would you move Falmouth Elementary's MD students to only replace them with an EBS class?
We were looking specifically at the students, not at the students' disability area, but the students who live closer to that school.
It appears that the new developments are all going to a school rated higher, and older developments are going to schools under. Why are new houses getting preferential treatment?
Neighborhoods, old or new, were not giving any different and preferential during the analysis by the consultant.
In addition to the spaces opened by relocating preschool to the new facility and increased capacity of the new Moncure Elementary School, where did the lower capacity figures district-wide come from? How are we able to now fit so many more students in the same facilities?
This summer, as part of the program capacity calculation, the school board voted to increase the class size assumption that drove the calculation from 24 K through 3, 25 4th and 5th, and 24, or up to 24 kindergarten, 26 first, second, and third grade, and 27 4th and 5th.
Why aren't we hearing directly from our elected representatives? This is a town hall, which means we should hear directly from those that make the actual decision. Our reps won't respond directly at school board meetings. Why won't they respond here tonight?
The school board made a decision to work with a consultant and to gather the information by attending the meetings, reviewing emails and other information that the public is presenting. I could tell you they are remarkably focused and in tune what people are thinking, but they made a conscious decision to allow professionals to provide the information, and at the end, the school board will make the final decision of a redistricting plan.
So I just wanted to follow up on the question about the existing neighborhoods. How many of those neighborhoods are broken? We have that data. We can't find it right now. But after the meeting, please connect with us. We have your card. We want to be able to get that information back to you. We do have it. We just can't find it. We don't want to give you inaccurate information tonight.
What new criteria or ideas have been discussed regarding the start of elementary school number 18 since last week? The superintendent said he would have meetings this week.
So we did have our meeting. 3 school board members met. We had the beginning discussion on what would trigger a new elementary school. Tomorrow, the school board chair, vice chair, the board of supervisor chair and vice chair, county administrator, and myself are meeting. We're going to continue the conversation, and I hope in the very near future that there will be an agreement of what, right now there seems not to be a clear pathway of understanding what is the formula to use for a new elementary school, and I believe we're getting closer to a decision on that.
The school my child is slotted to be redistricting to is 4 miles away, performs much lower than her current school, which is closer. Can you please explain how you will ensure that my child and all of our children will receive a comparable education with redistricting?
So, as you know, we have 17 elementary schools, and as you know, all 17 elementary schools are fully accredited. And to look at performance at the elementary level is a little different when you go to the high school and even to the middle school. There's different ways we could compare and measure, but one that anyone could do tonight is look at, but believe me, I don't believe this is the only way you evaluate a school, but if to look at some type of objectivity and standardization, you look at the standards of learning. And I actually spent yesterday and today getting a 3-year, not just a 1-year, trend of the schools, elementary schools in Stafford. And my conclusion is that we have some schools that are doing well consistently over those 3-year periods, some schools that are making improvement, some schools that are making improvement 1 year and doing slight declines in the 2nd year. But let me just get right to the end. There is not a great difference. There truly is not a great difference. And again, we don't rank the schools. The DOE doesn't rank the schools. I know there's websites, usually driven by realtor associations, that rank schools, give a number, which is not by any means a number that drives accreditation or educational decisions. But if you take all 17 schools, there isn't a great difference from 1 year to the next of the highest performing and the lowest performing. Matter of fact, they're all pretty much clustered in the middle. And again, you could go to the Department of Ed website. They have a thing called Quality Profile. You click Stafford, and you click the elementary school that you're interested in.
When creating connectivity, did Arkbridge realize the created new islands with Plan A, islands that were not there before?
In the new proposed plans, Plan A and Plan B, there are no islands. We took care of the islands that were in Hampton Oaks, Park Ridge, Falmouth, and Brent. So in the new plans, there are no islands.
How has teacher attrition been impacted by large-scale redistricting in the past?
I don't think we have that data, but I do know our HR conducts an exit survey with all teachers that lead the division. To my knowledge, I'm not aware that that has surfaced as a high or even a concern in our exit surveys from past redistricting efforts.
The 2 proposed plans focused on the same criteria and produced similar results, each moving about 25% of the student population. Why wasn't a plan proposed that emphasized balancing enrollment while minimizing disruption to the current districts?
When we developed Plan A and Plan B, we used the same criteria that I presented to you. We also looked at several other scenarios, and trying to minimize the changes, but working with planning units, the way Stafford County schools are, the way your neighborhoods are, your planning units, these are the two scenarios that we came up with. Believe me, our goal is to minimize changes, but you know, there were 4 or 5 schools which had overcrowding, somewhat overcrowding issues, and then there were 4 schools which had disconnected areas. So working with them and the way Stafford County is, we did minimize the changes as much as was possible.
Did the consulting group consider the impact that Amazon is going to have on our school district?
That was not one of our criteria.
How were the criteria weighted in the model? Did this weighing differ for Model A and Model B?
For both the models, we had the same criteria. And of course, the main thing that we were working on was to balance enrollment across all schools. That was the main criteria. Then keep proximity to schools, connectivity, contiguity, and also trying to keep the neighborhoods together. Those were the criteria.
Grafton Village Elementary School currently has a full SAC program. What will be the options for parents? Brook Road currently is undergoing construction. What are the bus route options? SACC program?
So all of our elementary schools have before and after school programs. The impact, the direct impact, not sure how each school will be affected based on parents, where they live, their daycare. So if a plan is approved, we'll analyze that. I'm sure all 17 principals will look at their program along with the YMCA and see if there's any changes that need to be made to accommodate their new attendance areas.
What is the procedure for children with IEPs?
I need to know a little bit more detail. Procedure for?
Diane Moore?
So we have a proposal for students with low incidence under autism, emotional disabilities, intellectual disabilities. For students with other health impairments or specific learning disabilities, those services are provided in all 17 elementary schools. It's those low incidence programs that are less frequent that we had to look specifically at where they're located. So students with a traditional IEP or general IEP for a specific learning disability or other health impairment will be able to be served in whatever school that they are attending.
How will there be reassignment of special education teachers, or will special education teachers be hired for the elementary schools in need of them?
I believe depending on what plan is chosen, special education teachers will be treated just as general education teachers are, and our Human Resources Department is looking for a process to make sure that all of our teachers have a job. So special ed teachers and paraprofessionals will be impacted the same as a general ed teacher and a general instructional paraprofessional.
Will the redistricting affect children who go to different elementary schools outside of their district? Will they still be able to continue attending the school?
At this point, a determination on if a student has a valid transfer currently is to be determined. That decision has not been made yet.
In the past, specific neighborhoods have gotten to keep their neighborhoods together, while other neighborhoods keep receiving the brunt of it and seeing their neighborhood divided more and more. Why are some neighborhoods' input and opinions more valuable than others?
All neighborhoods were treated alike, and like I said, we have tried to minimize any kind of splits, but we did, there were 11 neighborhoods that were split in Plan A and 16 in Plan B. And we are looking for feedback. We have, based on the geography, based on the location, that is some neighborhoods, it was inevitable, but we are looking for feedback, and we will review with the board and see what can be done.
How does splitting of neighborhoods meet your criteria of keeping communities together?
That's a good question, because you have 766 neighborhoods, residential neighborhoods in Stafford County, and in Plan A we have split 11 of those, which is less than 2%. In Plan B we have split 16, which is just about 2%. So that is what we thought was as much as possible.
How does Plan A and Plan B change the status of Title I that several of our schools have? What happens to the existing resources at each school?
Okay. So Title I is a designation a school receives if 40% of their students qualify for free and reduced lunch. And so not to confuse it, that's different than class size reduction. Let me get that real quickly. Class size reduction is based on a 3-year rolling average of 30% and higher, and depending on the percentage, the higher the percentage, the lower the class sizes, K through 3rd grade. But to get back to the question, and I just want to make this statement because I just feel obligated to. That's a economic criteria indicator set by the federal government. It's by no means suggests anything that those children can't learn to the highest levels, because they do. Matter of fact, one of the things I've been most proud about is that some of the schools where people really, really want to stay are schools that have some of our highest free and reduced lunch rates. So I see that as a very positive thing. But to get to the question, that the resources follow the school. So if a school becomes a Title I school and it was not a Title I school prior, those resources go to the school now that becomes Title I, and vice versa. So if you were a Title I school and fall below the 40%, those resources, there is a transition phase of removing those resources, but that's how pretty much it works.
You can place all of the Hampton Oaks community into their neighborhood school and still include other neighborhoods that are not near or does not have a neighborhood school to reach your 85.6%. Why was this not one of the options if the goal is to keep neighborhoods together as much as possible?
Hampton Oaks is currently split in 2 attendance areas. One of them is Winding Creek and the other is Hampton Oaks. In Plan A, we have tried to keep Hampton Oaks as much together. So we had to provide relief to Winding Creek, which was already 96% up to capacity. So we took part of Hampton Oaks and we assigned it to a different school. I think it was Park Ridge.
Okay. Why is the school board reluctant to implement a liberal grandfathering clause, allowing redistricting to occur over several years and allowing maximum flexibility for current students?
All right, so the only thing that the school board has decided at this point is rising 5th graders whose parents are able to transport them can stay at this current school. That's the only thing that has been discussed at this point.
Okay, so this person has 4 questions with respect to special education services. So I'll try to grab a couple.
Just pick one.
Okay. What factors were considered when selecting program locations?
So the first factor was proximity to the student's neighborhood school. We looked at the potential for doubling programs, so 2 LS1 programs or Learning Support 1 programs for students with intellectual disabilities, so that teachers could split a K-5 group into K2 and 3 through 5. Some students are working on an SOL curriculum, some students are working on an aligned standards curriculum. So if you're able to split and share those resources, it helps the staff and it helps the students as far as what's taught. The other portion was trying to put a cap on the number of programs per individual school, being respectful of the resources in the school and still maintaining that integrity of closeness to home for the child.
Yeah, we're just going to do one. Is the school board taking the parents' comments into their decision-making process, or are these plans going to take effect no matter what?
School board is absolutely taking all these comments very seriously, and they'll deliberate, and all their deliberations will be open to the public at the school board chambers, and most likely every one of them will be televised.
If bus drivers are limited making more than one trip to pick up students in the AM or PM routes, why not have nearest to the school attend that school walk? Sorry. That was Regina. Regina.
In most cases, as Mr. Horan alluded to a while ago, the walking zones that are there will remain there. We have to, when we take into account for non-transportation zones, we have to meet with the Sheriff's Department, VDOT, and different entities to make sure that the area is able to be used as a walking zone, that all the safety things, that all the safety precautions are there for our students.
In a previous redistricting, transportation stated they could not divide Aquia Harbor as it would be a nightmare for the transportation schedule. Why is it acceptable to divide it now?
We make it work no matter what, and I had a quote sent to me this week that I do not recall making from 5 years ago, and transportation was a part of, I've had routing coordinators who were a part of working with Arc Bridge on this, and whatever we need to do, we're able to do.
I'd like to add that. In one of the plans, Aquia Harbor is all in one attendance area.
Did the committee or school board consider the repercussions to the children, the movement of military families, the movement of students not good with change? Will there be extra support for those who are not resilient?
One of the things that I've been asking, and the school board has obviously been thinking about, is if a decision is going to be made to make it early enough where we could work with the families and the children that are impacted, so we could, and there's different ways of doing it, obviously, visiting the schools, maybe meeting the new administration and so on. So we will take whatever steps are necessary to be sensitive to the transition for children and the families. And so what we hope, we being staff, is that a decision obviously is made to give us that time to do that properly.
Why were class sizes increased to avoid capacity limits so that the new elementary school number 18 from the CIP?
The class size assumption in the capacity calculation was increased to align with the staffing standards that is approved by the school board.
Why would the children in the Poplar Hill subdivision be moved from Stafford Elementary to Grafton Village Elementary when there are so few? The distance is double and the roads often flood during inclement weather. What was the rationale there?
The rationale between, it was once again balancing the enrollment across Stafford and Grafton, so that was the main driving force.
Why is the Facebook page basically empty? Why is there no pertinent real-time information on it?
The Facebook page is there, and most of the communication we do get through Facebook and through emails, and we are doing our best to keep up with them. And the school has a Facebook page and a website that all the information is being put out to you, and flyers are being sent. So as you request more information, we can send it there, but most of it is coming through one site, which is the SCPS redistricting page.
When will you release the number of students in each APU, please?
The number of students in each planning unit are wrapped up in the consultant's presentation. It's already out.
We have prepared a large-scale map in which we have put APU numbers and not APU numbers, students by APU, and we have also put in the neighborhood. We will provide it to SCPS and they can post it on the website.
Okay, the next question. You say that you did not look at middle schools, but how is it in the best interest of our children or communities to isolate children from their future middle school peers?
This is an elementary school redistricting. We did look at middle school boundaries, but we did not analyze them. And I want to point out that even now, your elementary school attendance areas are split into 2 middle schools. So we did look at it, and we had the redistricting constraints, and we looked at the boundaries, but it's an elementary school redistricting, so we did not analyze them much.
Why haven't individual special ed programs been looked for successful teachers and team staff already in place instead of just looking at special needs students as a number or a dot on a map? Some of the redistricting will make special needs students transition once again, some going on their 4th elementary school.
So we did not look at the historic data of how many transfers or redistrictings happened before this current one. We were trying to focus on getting students closest to their neighborhood schools as possible and to ensure that we are providing the staffing to meet the needs that they have.
If the goal is to double low incidence programs, why are the most schools going to just autism or EBS? What about students with both disabilities on their IEP?
We will, of course, honor the services that are on IEPs. They're mandated services, so that will be implemented. As you see on the low incidence program, we are anticipating 25 autism programs next year. It's approximately 2 per building, Conway with 3. Our EBS programs are programs for students with emotional disabilities. There are 7 projected for next year. So we will look to ensure that mandated services are covered.
Do you recognize and acknowledge that closest school is in fact not reflected in this proposal, specifically for the Margaret Brent Elementary School?
Yeah, we did look at proximity, and I do acknowledge that every time we could not assign planning units to the closest school, primarily because, you know, the school may not have had the capacity, or it was not basically capacity was the biggest thing for us.
Why are you splitting up an entire neighborhood, Aquia Harbor?
In Plan A, we have Aquia Harbor as being split, but not in Plan B. The goal was to keep the neighborhoods together, and that is what we have attempted to do. And in providing you with 2 plans, we are providing you with 2 different configurations that you can provide us feedback. The school board can take a look at it, and SCPS planning can see what is the best fit. That is the reason why we have 2, and in one we have it together, in the other one it's not. And once again, it's because of geography, it's because of location, it's because of where the neighborhoods are and how the planning units are.
My student is in a multiple disabilities classroom. Because there are only 3 such classrooms, my child is not currently at a neighborhood school. Why go to the trouble to move their classroom when they won't be moving to their neighborhood school anyway?
We were looking at all of the students served in that program. So we will have the flexibility depending on what the board chooses to do or how they advise us, but we were looking at every student in each classroom.
Plan A now has my son commuting past 2 schools. That means putting our children at greater risk, having to endure hour-long commutes in buses that do not have air conditioning and poor heating. How can you justify this?
Are you talking about England Run neighborhood?
Actually,
yeah.
it's Winding Creek, Augustine North.
Winding Creek, Augustine North. Winding Creek has a high capacity. It's one of those schools which are overcrowded. So and Brent has space, so that is the reason. And once again, the goal was to balance enrollment across all the schools, so that is the reason why we moved. And Winding Creek currently is at 96.93%, and coming year, if nothing is done, it's going to be over capacity, and that is one of the reasons why we moved this particular area.
Sending a child to a new school with new kids, teachers, and administration is disruptive and can cause anxiety. What support or help is planned to help the children moved into another school?
So as I said earlier before, we will work with every child and every family. Every child is different and every family may have a different request. I feel very comfortable saying that visiting all the schools multiple times, and I understand change is difficult, and I understand for some it's going to be uneasy, and we're going to respect and work with each child through meeting staff, school counselors, administrators, getting used to the bus routes if they take buses, and so on. So when the school board makes a final determination, we will hold multiple meetings at the schools so families and children could get to see the new location, meet the administration and staff, and we're going to collectively work as a school division to alleviate any anxiety or stress that comes from the final redistricting plan.
Is there a difference in programs available at each elementary school? For example, Margaret Brent has a STEM and, are these same programs offered at Rock Hill?
So, art, music, and specials like gifted and so on are consistent among all 17 schools. Some schools may have something that's unique to that school. Sometimes it's a partnership with their PTO or PTA and so on. But the what we would call the electives or specials are consistent among all 17 schools.
Is it possible to see a Plan A and Plan B map for low incidence classes?
What we currently have is the proposal that's here, and we are willing to look at that again depending on what option is chosen by the board.
But could we put the Plan A and, you have the low incidence in Plan A and B, could we just put it on our website so people could see it?
It would be the same.
Oh, it's already
Plan
up
A
there?
or B.
Oh, it's the same A or B?
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
could we just put that on the website?
Sure.
Okay.
I am being told by teachers at our school, lowest capacity in the county, that class sizes are too big, and that is why they have to do things in a less than ideal way. Did you get any feedback from teachers before deciding classes could be bigger?
The class size is derived from the school board approved staffing standards. So that is what the school board has said the maximum class size they like to see for each grade are.
And let me just touch upon that also. There's no question, if you have larger class sizes, this would be K through 12th grade. It causes increased stress for staff, not able to give the individualized attention they would love to give your children. The other thing that I just want to quickly mention is that, to the earlier question, when schools keep growing, so one of the reasons we're here is because there's an acknowledgement that some of the schools are at a point where we're beginning to remove rooms that could be used for, again, special activities, like makerspace, like maybe having art on a cart or music in a classroom. So, and then of course the other issue is, even though the school board has its own staffing standards, I would also tell you they're below the state standards. So, again, we're going to try our best and so far have stayed in the staffing standards. But if we're in a situation where we keep on growing and there's not more space created, we're not like a hotel. We don't put a no vacancy sign on. We're going to educate your child. So one of the reasons we're here today, as you saw in one of the earlier slides, we just have a few schools right now that are over capacity, getting very close to being over capacity, and some schools that are under capacity. And that causes stress when you have classes that are larger in the overcapacity, and you take away opportunities from children because you need to add more homeroom, classroom space, and that means reducing what I would just call special space.
What support and resources will be provided to school administration and teachers to ensure a smooth transition for students and their teachers? Also, will principals and/or teachers be moved as well? Okay, so again, not only do we want to support your children, we obviously want to support the staff throughout this transition. So again, depending on the school, we will personalize what supports they will need. To the question of teachers, there would be a shift based on enrollment. So if a school's going to have additional classes, they would require additional staff. If a school's going to have lower number of students, they may have a reduction of staff. So the shifting of staff will happen, and we'll have a system in place where teachers will have input and choice
Of course, we have to always factor in proper credentials, that we have teachers at schools that have the state license to teach the subject in which we need somebody there.
My child has autism. If she has performed well at her current school, is that taken into consideration in terms of her future placement?
As I indicated, we have projected 25 classrooms next year for autism self-contained, and I would say, based on my history in the school division, we have phenomenal autism teachers. So I believe those supports will be consistent across the board. As Dr. Kisner has already alluded to, we will support students and families through transition. We work with students with autism and emotional disabilities on transitions all the time, from 5th grade to 6th grade, from 8th grade to 9th grade. The usage of social stories, those visits to the school through community-based instruction, all of those supports will be available for families, for students with autism and any other low-incidence population.
Why would you choose to move forward with the redistricting before a decision on a new elementary school is made?
The current situation in our elementary schools is unequal or imbalanced capacity utilization amongst the 17 schools. The elementary school that would, or maybe in the future, would be out in the future. We need an immediate answer or an immediate fix, or at least a fix for the near future, so that we can better balance the utilization across our schools.
Will there be an increase of teachers in the classroom since there is a plan to increase the amount of students in each class? How will the focus programs be affected?
There's two parts to that question. All right, so if there's increased numbers in a class, we'll follow the process we're using now and hopefully improve upon it. Get less children in classes, depending on the class, maybe provide extra paraprofessional support. I'm not aware of any changes to the gifted education model. If a school has an increased number of children that qualify and more staff is needed, then we'll shift staff to the schools that need the extra staff for resource help.
Why wouldn't they provide a bus monitor for the kindergartners on the bus, and would they ever provide one so that the bus drivers will not constantly have to discipline them and they can concentrate on driving?
I love it. That is a budgetary issue, and also honestly we do have trouble sometimes filling the monitor positions that we do have. But that's a question that comes up, and I will go on record as saying I love it.
Since you can't really move to Stafford and know exactly which school your child will go to, will the school board make sure that each school offers the same opportunities, like, for example, field trips, sports, take-home projects, so you don't miss out when you're redistricting?
Yes, so one of the issues the school board has been talking about for a long time and keeps talking about it is equity. And what you're basically saying is, could all children have opportunities and access to the fun and important things? So that's part of the responsibility of the building principal, is to make sure that takes place, and then to work with other staff if they're unable. And truthfully, right now, for those of you who might be PTO, in the leadership of your PTO, you might recall back in September when we had the PTO leadership meet with the school board. And we have examples right now where some PTOs are able to raise $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 and support like technology and other programs, and other PTOs are trying their best, but if they're able to raise $5,000, $6,000, that's a commendable accomplishment. So we have that problem right now, and that's an area, again, if you come next Tuesday to the school budget part of the school board, I'm hoping to begin to address that programs and resources should not be dependent upon what school you go to, that every child has access to these programs.
Are before and after school programs like the YMCA considered in this redistricting? Like, for example, will we have a more difficult time enrolling our children at Rock Hill or Garrisonville or Margaret Brent Elementary?
I think we've addressed this a little bit earlier. The after-school programs are at all of our elementary schools, and they will not be affected. The new attendance zones, if approved, will have some impact on that, and so we will work with the YMCA and the principals to make sure we address any of those impacts. But the quality of those before and after programs are going to be very consistent as what we have today.
Special needs numbers are consistently changing, like, for example, foster care moving newfound eligibility. This balances things now, but what about years to come? Things are constantly changing, but for special education students, consistency is key. So why are successful special ed programs being moved?
I think we've addressed this a little bit with the objective to try to get kids to their neighborhood schools, all kids, inclusive of students with disabilities. Whoever wrote that question, you are correct. Our numbers are always changing, and it seems that they're always going up. I was looking at our sheet. We have 5 schools without autism programs for the start of next school year. I believe in 3 to 5 years we'll have autism programs probably in every elementary school. So it will be a process of trying to see if we can get kids as close as we can to the neighborhood schools and provide those quality services.
Can the school board advise the county to limit community development, building new homes when they can't handle the population? Are there any land left to create school with the growing population?
Well, truthfully, any one of us could advise the Board of Supervisors. The decision of approving permits and building doesn't fall with the school board. But the school board, I know, because I've been at some of the meetings, that conversation does take place. But truthfully, it's not a school board function. And I know some of you, I don't know, in this room, but we have received some emails where people have raised that issue, and hopefully they have also forwarded that question or concern to their board representative.
I don't see actual street names on these maps. How or when do you plan to identify actual streets? It is unclear on your map if subdivisions are going to be split.
The large-scale maps that you see at the back, we have street names on them, and you should be able to see those in the large-scale maps. They are posted here, and they are also online where you can zoom in and see the street names.
It was stated that rising 5th graders can remain at their school if transportation is provided. What about rising 5th graders in low incidence classrooms whose programs are moving out of their school? Will they be excluded from this privilege due to their disability?
That transportation piece is going to be incorporated in their IEP. So the mandated transportation will help secure that child a placement in the program depending on where the program is located. But we would still transport that 5th grader. So it's going to be dependent on if that program moves. Sorry.
It was stated that rising 5th graders can remain at their school if transportation is provided. What about rising 5th graders in low incidence classrooms whose programs are moving out of their school? Will they be excluded from this privilege due to their disability?
I think I'm going to have to address that when we get the final decision of what is the decision of the board on the redistricting decision.
What is the current capacity at Kate Waller Barrett Elementary? What is the goal capacity for Kate Waller Barrett in 2024?
The current program capacity is 966. What was the second part of the question?
And then
Oh, in
2024.
in 2022-23, it's going to be 85% in Plan A and 88.41 in Plan B. And if there were no Plan A or Plan B, it would be 73.95% in 2022-23.
By losing one of our EBS programs, we return to a K-6 program. How can this program with the wide range be successful, let alone appropriate for all students?
So our goal would be to have two programs together. We have different feedback since the town halls have started from some of our administrators on how many programs they would have, but we also have an odd number of EBS programs. We have 7. So there will be a singleton unless we put 3 in a building, and 3 programs in a building is significant for that population.
And our last question, how much were the factors of stability, continuity, and program successes considered over proximity for special education programs?
It is a consideration, but we also really looked at trying to get kids to their neighborhood schools and looking at the programs that we have. We have amazing programs in each of our schools, and I am confident that as our kids move, they will still be exposed to strong programs.
Well, this concludes the town hall meeting. The next discussion on elementary redistricting will take place February 12th and 26th during the school board meetings in the public comment section. Thank you for attending the town hall meeting, and have a good night. Thank you.